Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at the brand new release from Spinnaker, and the name of this is the Spence. Now, I don't know about you, but I think it's very Seiko inspired. It could almost be a modded SJX 007. So let's think about the prices. It is going to be $280 RRP or £230. Now that is quite a lot of money. In fact, it's probably more than you'd pay for the equivalent Seiko. So let's discuss, see if it's worth the money. So specs, sizes, we have a 41.5mm diameter. We have a height of 16mm. If I just put it on my 7.25-inch wrist. And we also have a lug-to-lug length. Just 1 second. There you go. We also have a lug-to-lug length of 47mm. So size-wise, it's a pretty good size. You know, slightly under the traditional 42mm for a diver. So I personally think it's a really nice size on the wrist. It looks good as well. Not too big, but it gives you a nice amount of chunkiness to it to create a decent impression. To go with the dimensions, we have a weight of 98 grams as well, so it's not too heavy, but not too light. So again, you have a good amount of wrist presence from it, but you know, also it's not too heavy for it to be a really awkward timepiece to wear on the wrist. The movement is actually a Seiko movement. It's the NH35A, which we've come to know very well with affordable watches. They're also extremely accurate out of the factory as well. So this one is no different. I, in fact, have measured it using my Lepsy watch scope, and it's around 5 seconds a day out, which I'm sure you're aware is actually COSC. Within the COSC regulations, so that's actually quite impressive. Thinking about the movement whilst we're on here, we have a custom rotor as well. It's probably just a sticker on the stock movement rotor, but it's a nice little touch anyway. So there we have it there. It's has a water resistance of 200 meters, so it is slightly more than your regular affordable watch, which would be like 100 meters. So we do have a little bit more play there. We've got a screw and crown to help with that as well, and then a lug width of 22mm. So I think it's a suitable width. A nice big thick strap to go with the chunky feel of the watch. So going into each section individually, then the dial. The dial is quite straightforward, bold, easy to read, but with a couple of nice little twists and turns as well. I quite like the shape of the hands. Notice the interesting hour hand with this bulge in the middle, and then just a standard baton minute hand, and the second hand is quite standard stick with a little loom disc on it as well. They have a brushed finish to them which matches the entire case. Everything on it is brushed apart from the end of the crown. So it goes together nicely, you know, all throughout the watch. Just a plain black dial as well with printing on it. The Spinnaker logo is actually applied, but that's really light, unfortunately, which I found with all the Spinnakers. Actually, I just wish that would be a little bit thicker, a little bit better quality. The applied hour markers, they're a similar finish to the hand, so like a brushed kind of feel to them. Two metal edges with a loomed center. The loom of the dial isn't the best, you know, but around this price range you're never going to get a particularly great loom, unless of course it is a Seiko. So in that respect, you know, nothing too drastic out of the ordinary. We have a date window here, nice and legible because it's white on black, with a steel surround to it as well. The dial in itself, you know, not mind-blowingly amazing, but it's nicely, you know, it's fairly nicely designed, does a good job, and also, you know, it's well put together as well. Yeah. Moving on to the case then, as I mentioned before, it's all completely brushed, quite nicely finished, although there is a bit of a sharp edging here and there, especially on the bottom, but it has some nice lines to it. to show well, that it's got good machining techniques. You can see the lines there and the contrast. So it's a pretty standard barrel shape with some nice big protruding crown guards. The crown itself has the Spinnaker logo. That's quite nicely engraved on the end of the polished end as well. Considering the complexity, it's very nicely done, but we'll look into that with closer detail with the macro lens. The thread is pretty good, so it's unscrewed now, and then I can wind it or pull it out to set the watch, push it back in there. So that's pretty good, pretty nicely done. The bezel, nice little design cue with the blue coming through on the first quarter. The feel of the action isn't the best, as you can see there. We've got a fair bit of backwards play on it as well, but it is relatively easy to use. Let's try and get it lined up. It is quite accurate as well, as you can see. It's lined up very nicely, but when you're using it, it just doesn't feel the best. But then again, not too many watches around the 200 price range do have a beautifully buttery-like glide to the bezel action. The insert is just aluminium with painting and a lume pip at 12. Moving on to the case back then, obviously we have a exhibition window showing the NH35A movement off, and then just some watch specifics around the outside. Nothing particularly exciting to mention here, apart from it looks pretty solid, pretty well put together, and obviously this screw-in case back and the screw-in crown are what gives it its 200 meters water resistance. The movement then, NH35A, very good, runs at 21.6 thousand beats per hour, so that's 6 ticks per second, so it's classed as a low beat movement. As I mentioned before, extremely accurate straight out of the factory though, and very, very reliable. I've never seen or had any problems whatsoever with any of these movements, so you can be sure that you'll have a good runner for many years to come. The strap itself, it's had some waterproofing treatment to it, this leather, so you can see you have water resistant leather on it. It does give it quite an interesting waxy feel to it, and as you can see, that has resulted in a bit of wear already. I mean, I haven't worn it a massive amount, but as you can see, we've got quite a bit of aging to it, if you will. So whether you like that kind of thing or whether you don't, that's something to keep in mind. But it does have some nice little design cues with the blue stitching, the tops, and also a little bit of detailing at the bottom there, which is quite nice. It does feel good quality leather, and it is actually quite supple as well. But it's just interesting to feel the difference in the texture from a waterproofing treatment. The buckle, here we go. We have a Spinnaker logo, nice and deeply engraved on it, so that's quite good. And actually the watch itself comes with a blue and black NATO strap with the same buckle on as well. Okay, so let's get the macro lens on and we'll just have a look in closer detail. So starting at the logo on the dial, as you can see there, pretty nicely made. Nothing to complain really, but it is quite lightweight, quite thin. Let's have a look at these hands. You can see there the sort of brushed finish to them, and then that kind of finish follows through to the hour markers. As you can see there, all the hour markers are actually pretty well made, and they have a nice little angle to them on the ends as well to provide a bit of tiny bit of depth to the dial. And then we just have a very simple date window, 3. Moving on to the case, there's the bezel insert, the pip, it's the grip of the bezel, and then moving on to the case itself with the brushed finish. You can see that quite sharp angle to it as well. Here's the other lug, and moving over this way. There's the Spinnaker logo engraved on the end of the crown. There's the rest of the crown there, quite nicely made. So moving around to the case back, here we have the specifics, and then the, let me just give that a quick wipe. Custom rotor there, with just what seems to be just a sticker on it. But there we go, no problems. And there's movement ticking away nicely. Moving on to the strap then, here's that sort of waxy top to it. With our stitched intricacies, and then just looking at our holes, the bit of wear on it. And moving over here to the buckle. So that's the logo engraved there. Okay. So, the Spinnaker Spence, £230. Now, I personally have found it quite, let me just give it a wipe, found it quite difficult to get overly excited about this watch, mainly because for the same price you can actually get a Seiko 007, which in my mind and in the minds of many other people is a far superior watch. Yes, this is a little bit different, but not too different to warrant the extra price tag, I don't think. It is a well-built watch, and it is, solidly designed. It's not breathtaking, but it is, suitable for what it's been designed for. And, because it looks like a Seiko, it does look cool. So I do appreciate it for that. It's just such a difficult decision to make when you do have the other options for the same price or less. So yeah, overall a good effort, well built, well put together and solidly designed, but not different enough or not outstanding enough to warrant not going for a Seiko, I don't think. So this was the Spinnaker Spence, and that's what it's all about.